It was a sight for sore eyes, but an Oklahoma State quarterback rolled up to Lawrence, Kansas, and did quarterback kind of things. It wasn't quite enough to get the dub versus KU, but the biggest question is, was it enough moving forward?
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
How are we feeling, our Big 12 brethren? Shout out to all the regulators out here. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your top stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at All Day O State. Today, we're partially brought to you by Game Time Tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On College, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app today. Meanwhile, we get to slide right in this conversation of Oklahoma State's quarterback has arrived. The Zane train has officially rolled on the station. Unfortunately, it happens at the Week 10 marker of the year. And also, unfortunately, it did come together in a loss. But it's still something to look forward to, positively wise. In a season that we are grasping for reasons to look at positivity, this is absolutely one of them. Zane Flores entered this ball game without a lot of fanfare, without a lot of expectations, you could say. And all he does is go out there and go 22 of 28 for 235 yards at 8.4 yards per completion, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and a QBR rating of 74.4. If anybody would have anticipated that Zane Flores was going to roll into Lawrence, Kansas, and pass for over 200 yards, that would have been a little bit of an eye-catching statement. But secondarily, doing it while almost 80%, that is definitely something that would have not been on our bingo card, just predicated upon what we've seen thus far early on in the season from Zane. We needed to have the ability to stretch the field to give us an opportunity to at least make this game a fighting chance going into the fourth. And a lot of those things did happen. Of course, KU did kind of break it open there towards the end. But this is the first quarterback performance we've seen this season outside of Haas Haney's very first game against UT Martin, where we looked at it and said, okay, this is not only an adequate performance, but this is something we can springboard moving forward and get excited about it. Now, the real question is, did Zane Flores do enough to kind of sideline the concept of Haas Haney returning? Oklahoma State is on a bye week this week, so if there was going to be a conversation to be had in regards to whether Haas Haney was going to come back or not, maybe Zane Flores just did enough to prevent that from being an absolute necessity. At the end of the day, if Haas Haney wants to come back and play and the doctors say that he's able to come back and play, I think all of us would still welcome that with open arms. However, if we're looking for instances where we have excitement moving forward, it is the fact that we just witnessed something at a Zane Flores that we haven't seen this season. 235 yards isn't the end all be all to your team's going to be very, very successful. But if we would have witnessed something like this in the beginning of the season, then A, Mike Gundy's job might not even be in jeopardy to the degree that it obviously was. And B, we don't know exactly what we'd be looking at for the future at quarterback. And now we have more questions than answers. I think before this game, the common consensus would have been, well, Zane Flores just needs to take his talents elsewhere, because the common consensus was always going to revert around the fact that Haas Haney should be the guy moving forward. Zane Flores at least showed us that with Kevin Johns calling the plays and them being on the same page, he has enough developmental pieces to make it make sense. Now, you have to look at the negative side of the equation as well. There was a decent number of instances where if Zane Flores would have pulled the ball, then he would have picked up first downs. But if we're nitpicking, right, that's about the only nitpicking moment that we can look at for this ball game. And we watched the passing game kind of come together better under Zane Flores, taking some time throughout the course of the season, not only physically playing on the field, but having some time on the sidelines to kind of make the game plan make sense to him practically. Maybe some of that timing was what he needs for rushing the ball as well. Athletically, I think all of us can see that Zane Flores is gifted enough to take the ball and run with it. Whatever his reluctancy is, it could be injury related. It could potentially just be him not seeing the ball well, or him making a predetermination on whether he's going to hand the rock off or not. And that could just simply mean that Zane Flores isn't designed to operate the best off of like an RPO style of system. Even if it's a traditional drop backing quarterback situation, maybe that's what's best for Zane Flores. Maybe the system where they're trying to run, even though he athletically can do it, isn't what's best for his style of quarterbacking. We now have something to look forward to, right? That's what this season has been. Whenever Rodney Fields pops off for 163 yards, that's something to look forward to. When Wendell Gregory's leading the team in tackles for weeks and weeks and weeks, that's something to look forward to. Now we have something else to look forward to. It's that Zane Flores showed that he can put up enough yards through the air to give us a fighting chance. And I think a lot of us would have circled this time frame as the only way we have a fighting chance is if Haas Haney is in fact coming back. But I do think that Zane Flores just showed us enough that the development throughout the course of the season has been happening. The offensive line play has significantly gotten better. And maybe that's just some of the little things that he was missing early on. And the wide receivers, I think they did a decent job. But part of that is because the defense has to respect the fact that Zane can, spread the field and get them going vertically, which opens up the horizontal game, which is why I think that Gavin Freeman had some capabilities in this game. Whenever all eyes aren't just on number 17, I think it allows number 2 and number 7 to also get out there and showcase what they could do. This was enough out of Zane Flores, in my opinion, for us to walk back off the ledge a little bit, that if Haas Haney doesn't come back the last 3 of the games of the season, we don't have a shot. At least Zane Flores showed us that his development throughout the season is not going to waste. And perhaps we shouldn't give up on the fact that he still has plenty in the tank to offer to Oklahoma State. He stayed loyal through a lot of crazy moments. And we all just needed to see that, to know that we do have a possibility of getting a W before the season's out, even if Haas Haney isn't the one taking the reins. Speaking of taking the reins, you need to do so with Game Time, because college football is the best in the business, and so is Game Time. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy, there's nothing like it, but sometimes the actual game is a better battle than what it took for you to get tickets, whether it be the endless queues or the hidden fees or the prices jumping at checkout. That's why you have to use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you'll pay. The app makes it super simple. You could even see the exact view from your seat before you purchase. You're going to love the zone deals. You pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you save big. It is faster, cheaper, and the least stressful way to purchase tickets. So don't miss out. Take the guesswork out of you buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, create that account, redeem that code LOCKEDONCLLEGE for $20 off. It's simple. You just swipe, tap, ticket, and go to download Game Time tickets today. Now we get to jump into the downside of this football game. Coming into this matchup against KU, defensively, we had a lot of hope because the front 7 hadn't allowed a 100-yard rusher in like 5 games. And collectively, we went from 5.5 yards per carry down to 2.7 yards per carry. And what does KU decide to do? Well, apparently they circled those statistics and said, we're going to beat Oklahoma State at their own game. The thing that they were really good at is stopping the run. We're going to focus on that, which is why they put up 232 yards rushing on the Cowboys. LaShawn Williams had 77 yards. Daniel Highshaw Jr. had 65. Ian Marshall had 43. Jalen Daniels had 28. Cam Pickett had 19. That receiver that is world renowned for his his return game, he even got in on the party. We only allowed 110 yards receiving. We only gave up 110 yards passing. If you'd have told us before the game that Jalen Daniels was only going to throw for 110 yards and there's not going to be a single wide receiver, that even comes close to the 50-yard mark, I'd have told you we probably win that ball game. And then if you were to factor in that our quarterback's going to throw for 235 yards, so if Jalen Daniels only throws for 110, they only catch for 110, and our quarterback's throwing for almost 240, I would have said that we probably get that W. But that did not happen because for the first time in the last 5 games, the front seven kind of got used and abused a little bit. And then the opposite end of the spectrum, Oklahoma State only put up 72 yards rushing. So it's kind of crazy that we have been yearning for a passing game this season. Zane Flores comes in and gives us that, and we don't have the rushing game to go alongside of it. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with Trent Allen, right? It doesn't make sense. But anywho, you do have to give a shout out. Gavin Freeman had 78 yards. Terrell Davis had 78 yards. Sam Jackson V had 34. Shamar Rigby had 31. Shamar had a touchdown. Gavin had a touchdown. Terrell Davis made some really big plays. Grayson Brousseau got in on the action. Royal Capel, Quentin Stewart, Ceci, Rodney. Shout out to Zane Flores spreading the roll around. Because, again, if we were able to do what we've been doing and prevent KU from rushing all over us, if you were to put those stat lines out, that probably does give Oklahoma State the possibility of winning this ball game. Unfortunately, that is not what happened because KU, they ran all over us. And you got to give them a shout out, right? They came in with a concerted effort to take away the thing that Oklahoma State's been taking away from opponents, which is the ability to rush the ball. And they were able to kind of spread it out and not just simply rely on Daniel Highshaw Jr. And then on the other side, Rodney Fields only has 56 yards. Ceci has 7. Trent Allen has 4. Zane Flores, obviously, didn't really get in on the rushing attack a whole lot. Defensively, pretty good to see Brian McCoy Jr. getting back at the top. He led the team with 8 tackles. Kamara, the KU Jayhawk, also had 8 tackles for them. Number 2 for Oklahoma State was Brendan Rawls with 5. Number 2 for KU was Trey Lathan with 6. Lyric Rawls had 3 tackles, including 3 solo and a pass breakup. LaDainian Fields also had 3 tackles, 3 solo, and he also got in on the tackles for loss department. Malik Charles had a nice game and Raymond Gate a second. Not bad, not great, not bad. The biggest deficiency that I think that we can pinpoint now this far into the season is just the safety room. I think LaDainian Fields is definitely better than Kale was. Cam Smith's had a pretty good season, so hopefully he's one of those individuals that we can at least attempt to get to stick around. But, at the end of the day, you have a young version of Sidvini Havili-Kavusi who could make his way back to Stillwater this upcoming season. Amon Oates was figured in this ball game quite a bit. We saw Landon Dean get out there and have some fun. The broad scheme of things, if we had Jaleel Johnson, maybe this thing looks a little bit different. Parker Robertson got in with 3 tackles. Eric Fletcher gets in with 3 tackles as well. We mentioned Cam Smith. Kenneth Harris Jr. has had a revitalized kind of season. Wendell Gregory only had 2 tackles, but he definitely made his presence felt. Kyron Duhan got him a couple tackles. Ike Essenmoon, Trip White, Landon Cleveland, Puaso Utu, Jacoby Oliphant, Tajay McCoy, Cooper Lay. I love seeing how many different guys are getting opportunities now. And I got to say that Brendan Rawls looked like he's an improved version of himself. If we can get that version of Brandon Rawls all season, then I think we're going to be looking at a competent linebacker core moving forward. But I think that some of that is just the competition that Trip White's been able to provide, right? Brandon Rawls looks like one of those dudes that's going to walk off the bus and be a tried and true all day, every day starter. Trip White doesn't have that same physical physique coming off the bus. But I think that there's validity in the fact that Trip White's been playing a more prominent role, and I think that has pushed Brandon Rawls to get to where he's at now. I think there maybe could have been some injury bug things happen, but nonetheless, when Trip White got his opportunities, I think you did see an uptick every time Brandon Rawls got in the game after that, simply because there's a level of competition now. And that level of competition needs to be spread all across the locker room, because you are seeing better versions of Oklahoma State football. It's just going to take that one day, that one game where we can kind of tie it all together. Like if you take Rodney Fields' 163-yard rushing performance with this Zane Flores 235-yard passing performance, and the Cowboys, allow less than 2.7 yards per carry, that's a win against most everybody in this league. But yeah, that's unfortunately the conversation we keep having. Like, well, if we take this block of success and then we can implement it into this next game and have another block of success, then we're probably close to giving ourselves a shot. But we're just not quite there yet. We haven't been able to piece all the facets of the game together. When the front seven dominates, the back end gets destroyed. When the passing game shows up, the running game kind of disappears. When the running game's absolutely killing it, we can't pass for more than 55, 65 yards. So if it hasn't been one thing this year, it's been another. And unfortunately, you can't just take slivers of this pie, slivers of that pie, and then kind of sliver these things together to make a whole complete piece of pie. When are we going to get to have this experience of tying it all together? Thankfully, again, we're seeing enough pieces of success that if there is one game this season that they can put it all together, the Cowboys should have an opportunity to get a W there, even if it's against one of the better teams in the league, because this league is absolutely crazy and we don't know what's going to happen from one day to the next. You can know exactly what's happening with your tickets, though, when you get with FanDuel. The NBA action is back, and there's not a better place for you to get in on the action than with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. So even if you missed the start of a game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has the live bets from everything who will score the next bucket or who will lead the fourth quarter comeback. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game more exciting, especially when your team is making the late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 back in bonus bets when your first $5 bet is a winner. So head on over to FanDuel.com to sign up today and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Hardwood season is almost back upon us. And thankfully, this goes far beyond just basketball, as the wrestling squad gets set with two dudes kind of winning over the weekend. Former Penn State Nittany Lion Ryder, he dominated. Zach Ryder not only dominated, but he majored his way into the tournament championship. And then Casey Swiderski, the Iowa State transfer, he did likewise. And not only that, he beat somebody that was entering the season as a consensus top 3, top 4 dude. So whenever you have that beginning to kind of kick things off, that goes right. And then Cowgirl basketball absolutely hammers away at New Orleans. Yeah, they were supposed to win, but 109-48 is a convincing W. 6 Cowgirls got in double figures. Yet Staley Hurd with a pedestrian 14. Amari Whiting comes over from BYU, immediately drops 11. Micah Gray, one of the hot hands from last season, chips in 24. The South Dakota State transfer Haley Timmer chips in 18 points. Praise Egvaregba has 10 points. And then Alina Girardi has 15 points. So pretty cool to see from the freshman. Jaden Wooten kicked in 6 points. I think she looked a little sporadic at times. The turnover margin was not so hot. I think as you go through the rest of the season, that'll be a little bit of a different factor. Acott comes over, and she has 11 rebounds total. Reimagine has 12 rebounds, which is great to see because that was a major problem of ours last year, even with Tinamagasa out here in domination mode. It was nice to see the Cowgirls get this W the way that they did it, starting each individual quarter with a 7-0 plus kind of run. And the announcers talked about it. This is a team that is good enough to make a Sweet 16 style of run. One of the coaches that was talking post-game was saying that this is a team that's good enough, if everybody stays healthy, to make a deep run. I mean, Sweet 16 is a pretty daggone deep run. So if there's an insinuation that could potentially even do more, that's amazing. But the Cowgirls won in resounding fashion, having a ton of girls kind of get into the mix. Faith Acker had 8 points, and the way that she went about her business was pretty impressive. I thought she was going to be somebody that was going to come in to be a big that could provide minutes, that could be resilient on the boards. That's not exactly the case. She's got really soft hands. I think whenever her and Audie Crooks go up against each other, that's going to be a pretty interesting matchup, because I do think that they play the game pretty comparable. Crooks does have a better shot, but it's going to be interesting to see how the Cowgirls handle this season, because we haven't had a lot in the way of high expectations for Cowgirl basketball. Now they finally have some of those expectations. It'll be cool to see if they're able to live up to them. Likewise, Cowboy basketball gets to kick off everything tomorrow against Oral Roberts. And, the exhibition went over Tennessee. There was no Kanye Cleary. There was no Christian Coleman. So what do those pieces provide? We're going to find out. And thankfully, Oral Roberts is traditionally, especially in basketball, an opponent that you have to not only respect, but you have to pay attention to. The beauty of this whole upcoming week is you had Cowgirls tonight, you have Cowboys tomorrow, and then Wednesday you have Cowgirls who play again Thursday, and then you have wrestling Friday. So it's going to be a filled week for Gallagher-Iba Arena action. I'm here for it. We've needed a slight reprieve from some of the craziness that has been football. So embrace Gallagher-Iba. Embrace the hardwood action for the Cowgirls, Cowboy basketball, and Cowboy wrestling. It's about to be a pretty busy week. So cannot wait to holler at you guys for some more of that. Anybody, that's all we're going to have for this one right here. As always, I love you. God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen here on Locked On Oklahoma State. You could be anywhere. So happy you choose to be here. Do me a favor. Hit the like button if you liked it. Dislike if you didn't. That's okay too. More importantly, share, comment, and subscribe. My podcast and people out there, you're everything that makes this work. So I appreciate what you do. Go do what you do. Hit the stars. Leave some reviews. All righty, y'all. Later, my taters.